Want to get away from LA to the Mediterranean coast without leaving Southern California? About 30 miles off the coast of Long Beach, there's a faint, jagged silhouette on the horizon. Visible from LA and reachable only by boat or private flight, Catalina Island gives the impression of an Italian coastline. Since moving to LA, I've wanted to explore this island's hiking trails, quaint towns, and food scene, and that's just what I'm doing today. Hi, I'm Michael from Traveling Tips. Join me as I show you some of the things you can do and experience in one day on Catalina Island. Before we begin, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Traveling Tips and subscribe to this channel to keep up with my travels across this great planet. Catalina Island sits mysteriously on the horizon off the coast of Los Angeles. Accessible only by boat or private flight, the island is a natural beauty relatively untouched by developers. Adventure sports enthusiasts flock here for scuba diving, snorkeling, ocean kayaking, hiking, and climbing. Others come for the quaint towns, ocean views, and sense of detachment from the real world on the mainland. Or people come because they've heard about the Catalina wine mixer in the movie Step Brothers. About 4,000 people live on Catalina Island, primarily in the town of Avalon. Some general tips up front. You need a plan to visit Catalina, especially in the summer and on weekends. The primary way to get to Catalina is by ferry, which has limited seats and sells out weeks in advance in the summer months. Also, many of the activities book up weeks in advance too, like the Zipline Eco Tour. Also, because of the remote environment, food, drink, and other consumer goods cost a bit more than what you're used to paying on the mainland. Unless you have access to a yacht or a helicopter, you'll board the Catalina Express, a direct ferry service that departs from various ports on the Southern California coast to the towns of Avalon and 2 harbors on Catalina Island. I booked a one-day round trip from Long Beach to Avalon. However, you can also catch direct ferries at San Pedro and Newport Beach. The ferry operates about every 90 minutes from Long Beach and costs $42 per person each way for general seating and $62 per person each way for the first class equivalent Commodore Lounge. Booking the Commodore Lounge gives you priority early boarding and a reserved indoor seating section on the top deck of the ferry. Honestly, it didn't appear worth the extra $20 each way per person. General seating on the ferry includes main deck indoor cabin and the upstairs outdoor seating. Pets are allowed and large bags and scuba equipment are stored in the general storage room on the main deck. We opted for the outdoor upper deck seating to take in the sunrise and smells of the ocean. We booked about 3 weeks in advance of our Saturday morning ferry trip, and the only morning sailing available was 6 a.m. Book even earlier for a more optimal departure time from Long Beach. Parking at the Long Beach landing is $22 per 24-hour period. To catch the ferry, you must arrive to check in at least 30 minutes prior to departure and join the boarding queue. That meant for the 6 a.m. ferry, we had to be in line by 5:30 a.m. Just for your reference, the Starbucks down on West Broadway near the ferry opens at 4:30 a.m. You're welcome. The ferry ride is about 1 hour from Long Beach to Avalon. As you leave Long Beach Harbor, you pass by the Queen Mary and many cruise ships and container ships waiting to enter the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. I don't usually get motion sick, but about 30 minutes into the ride, I really started to feel the porpoising motion of the ship as we sped across the Pacific. I just try to keep my eyes closed and go to sleep on the way over. I got some motion sickness prevention medication on the island for the ride back. Our ferry arrived in the port of Avalon a little after 7 a.m. The island is pretty quiet and empty since this was the first ferry arrival of the day. Feeling better after the boat ride, we're getting breakfast at the Pancake Cottage, a breakfast spot right at the edge of the harbor in downtown Avalon. The place was pretty packed since seemingly everyone from the ferry ran straight there. This is Avalon, the larger of the two towns on the island. Houses and hotels cling to the cliffs around the harbor above the perfectly aligned boats anchored in the morning sun. In the air is the sound of the waves crashing on the rocky beach, mixed with the sound of golf carts? Being a small island, many of the residents and tourists get around on golf carts. You can rent them by the hour during your visit to explore parts of the island outside of Avalon. There are also a few taxi cabs which charge insane prices for very short rides. Before it gets too hot, we're getting the day started with a hike to the top of the island on the Garden to Sky Trail. You need to register online for a free hiking permit and purchase a map of the hiking trails from the Catalina Island Conservancy. To get to this trail, make your way out of downtown into the canyon up to the Wrigley Memorial and Botanical Garden. Here, you must pay $10 per person entry fee to the Botanic Garden to access the remainder of the trail to the summit. The views from the summit are amazing. You can actually see both sides of the island from the top. The vast Pacific Ocean stretches beyond the horizon in all directions, creating a feeling of isolation and separation from the greater world. The hike up took about an hour, while the return hike down took only about 20 minutes. Watch out for the wildlife like gray foxes and deer if you decide to hike. On the way back to town, check out the Wrigley Memorial for its views of the distant harbor and surrounding hills and garden. The memorial honors William Wrigley Jr., the chewing gum conglomerate, who bought most of the island in the early part of the 20th century. I wouldn't suggest making a special trip to the garden unless you were planning to do the hike as well. While the Garden to Sky Trail is the most convenient and probably the easiest of the hikes on Catalina, check out the guidebook for other hikes, including the multi-day trek across the island. Back in town, we're getting a refreshing ice cream from the Lloyd's of Avalon confectionery near the harbor pier. There are a few lunch restaurants along the pedestrian promenade, but I'd suggest heading a few blocks inland to spots with some local flair, like the Sand Trap or Pete's Avalon Plaza Cafe. Like I mentioned earlier, if you want to do some excursions from Avalon, like the Wild Buffalo Safari or the Eco Zipline Adventure Course, you need to book early. Otherwise, you may be out of luck for afternoon activities. We're walking along the coastal path past the casino building to the Descanso Beach Club. If you want to party on Catalina, this is the place to be. Pleasure boats from the mainland anchored off the coast and sun worshippers crowd the sands near the bar and restaurant. You can reserve beach chairs for a fee, again way in advance, or take a spot for free on the rocky beach. I'd highly suggest bringing some sort of water shoe because the rocks can really hurt sensitive feet getting in and out of the water. The perfectly colored ocean water here feels so cold and refreshing after a hot morning hike. There are also ocean kayaks available for rent. Every June, the Descanso Beach Club hosts the Catalina Wine Mixer. Check their website for next year's details. After a few hours on the beach, we're heading back to the downtown of Avalon to get dinner and catch the ferry back to Long Beach. We ate at the Mi Casita restaurant near the water. Other options nearby that looked good were the Maggie's Blue Rose Mexican and Naughty Fox. There are a few other ice cream parlors along the waterfront promenade to grab an ice cream and watch the twilight hour. Generally, I was a bit disappointed by the cuisine on the island, but it makes sense that with the remote and touristy nature of this destination, it makes trendy dining unsustainable. As our nearly 13 hours on Catalina comes to an end, I'm struck by the natural beauty of this rock in the middle of the Pacific. With the postcard views of towering cliffs and scenic harbor, it reminds me of a coastal town on the Mediterranean. I ended the day trip on the 7:45 p.m. ferry back to Long Beach. While I visited for one day, hotels and campsites provide accommodations for overnight stays. A visit to Catalina is an amazing adventure. One day might be enough time for most visitors to experience the island. However, an overnight visit can provide some much-needed detachment from the craziness of LA. Have you been to Catalina before? Leave some thoughts from your experience in the comments. For more day trip ideas from LA, check out the playlist popping up here. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.